Hello, friends. So, I have a question for you. Have you ever been in the class where for the final, the professor gave you an option between doing a traditional essay or choosing the creative project of your choice? If your answer to that question is no, I feel very sad for you because I experienced it for the first time this quarter and it was wonderful because for my history of food in Japan class, I was given that option. And so, therefore, why would I not use this opportunity to travel around Chicago to try Japanese food for academic purposes? For all academic intensive purposes, of course. But jokes aside, this project did give me the opportunity to go interview at two restaurants, though I will only be covering my discussions with one of them today, and that is Gaijin. And I guess we can just roll film. We get straight into it. I wanted to try Japanese food, and I wanted to talk globalization of Japanese food, and that is more or less essentially what I did in this project. So, roll film. Are you looking for Japanese food in Chicago that isn't sushi or ramen? Then I've got the place for you. My first interview took place at Gaijin, an okonomiyaki restaurant in Fulton Market District. Best described by the translation of its name: how you like it, okonomi, grilled, yaki. Okonomiyaki is a savory flour-based cabbage pancake. The term okonomiyaki is said to have appeared in Osaka in the late 1930s, but the earliest version of this dish is said to date back to the Edo period with funoyaki, which was served at Buddhist ceremonies. Supposedly, it evolved into other pancake-like dishes over time and eventually became the okonomiyaki we know today. Although okonomiyaki existed before World War II, it gained popularity in the aftermath of the war because it could be made even with the limited food supplies available. Thus, it was made to be customizable. And customizable it is, since the fillings can range from meat to seafood or even vegetarian options. The main variations of okonomiyaki are Osaka style and Hiroshima style. Osaka style is created by mixing the ingredients in the batter and adding layers of toppings after it's finished cooking. Hiroshima style is accomplished by layering the ingredients and often includes yakisoba noodles. Fun fact: Hiroshima even has Okonomimura, the okonomiyaki village. Other variations of this dish also exist, including negiyaki, which is made of green onions, and apparently is similar to Korean pajun, and monjayaki, which is runnier than the other styles and usually eaten directly off the grill. Gaijin offers Osaka style, Hiroshima style, and negiyaki, so I had the honor of trying the chef's wife's favorite, Osaka style with shrimp, and their porkberry yakisoba. It was delicious. But I could not eat until after my interview with the owner, who personally took the time to make my meal, Paul Varon. Paul has been working in restaurants since high school, but didn't become familiar with Japanese cuisine until attending culinary school. Now he's a chef and owner of Gaijin and also owns a French brasserie, Petite V in Western Springs, and the Bistro Prime Steakhouse in Hinsdale. Bonus facts: he authored the Preservation Kitchen cookbook and once appeared on an episode of Beat Bobby Flay. Overall, I ate a fantastic meal and had a wonderful conversation with Paul about Japanese food and globalization.
What comes to mind when you hear like Japanese food globalization, or like globalization of Japanese food in general?
Um, I mean, I think it's funny because they were talking about that a little bit at the JASC event that we did a couple weeks ago. You know, I think for the most part, I think Japanese people, like, they want people to, appreciate and cook more, to eat more and cook more Japanese food, right? And it's good for them if people are interested in traveling there, but they're buying more Japanese products that are made, it's good for, right. So, you know, I think the concern is, like, you know, is it of the quality that it should be, or I think that sort of goes back to like respecting the food culture of a particular country, right? Like, are these tacos any good, or you know what I mean? Like whatever it is. Interestingly enough, like for us, that we have a okonomiyaki restaurant. More and more, you're seeing places that are doing it, like maybe it's a Japanese izakaya, or people that are doing it, and they have it on their menus and stuff. And like we were just like my older son lives in DC, and we were just out there and had it at this little izakaya, and it wasn't very good, right? Like so, like for us, that we have one Gaijin, we've always felt like it could be something you can do multiple of, right? But when it's a new food in the United States, and the stuff that's out there isn't as good as it should be, it's not helping the cause, right? Like, because then like you have it, and it's like, well, that wasn't any good, right? Like you're not going to be inclined to go to an okonomiyaki restaurant. I think it's important to to do things as well as you can.
Hey yo, quick bit of context before going into this next clip. So what you're going to hear is a bit of me rambling because I had this question, but then just between me being nervous and my question not being worded quite right, it was very difficult for him to understand. And so this little ramble is just following me attempting to explain my thoughts while being nervous in the moment. But so that you guys have proper context, what happens here is that I am very interested in popular culture, the globalization of popular culture, and how that affects like the reception of global products in non-domestic countries. So, for example, in this case, how might popular media like anime or like even like social media trends kind of influence like what's popular and what's not in the Western countries? Like the US, which is why you're gonna hear me like attempting to explain like things like sushi and other foods and so in like anime, but not really seeing like okonomiyaki. In my personal experience, is what I also want to stress. It's not that it's not there; it's just I haven't seen it, which is why I was curious. Um, but it ended up working out because as you'll hear, we ended up going into like a brief conversation about the difficulties of choosing a more niche dish to do, especially when it's not yet very prevalent in the country, in like in the host country or wherever the restaurant is located. And it also ended up leading to a very brief conversation about like how social media um, interacts with that, kind of like from his slash a Gaijin perspective. So yeah.
For me, like I said, not on camera, but I decided to interview Gaijin because it wasn't ramen or sushi. Because if you just, generally speaking, if you just look up Japanese cuisine, like the restaurants that like pop up are all like specifically like sushi and ramen places, and there's quite a few of them just throughout Chicago.
Right.
So I kind of even had to go.
And there's quite a few really, really good ones.
Yes.
Right.
So like, so there's nothing against there being like a certain number of them, but I did have to do some extra searching to find Gaijin and like the cuisine that you guys, or the food dishes that you guys like serve here. And then beyond that, I think I personally have a very limited perception of the vast like quantity of like Japanese dishes that actually exist, because a lot of my personal kind of experience comes from like anime, like pop culture references, which even in animes they tend to focus on like probably partially because like drawings, they tend to focus like like your Americanized like hamburgers, or they do like a lot of like ramen or like just rice like udon dishes in anime.
Right. If you
so like, is there?
Well, I think what you're touching upon, I mean, it's a couple things, but the one thing I'm thinking about, I think it's you're touching upon, I think, what we would describe, what Lance and I would describe as like some of the challenges that we've had as a okonomiyaki restaurant, because it's unique, it's different, super popular there, but it doesn't mean it's popular here, right? It's hard to find. So we're sort of kind of competing with the typical American, or what a lot of Americans think of as Japanese food, right?
Yeah.
And like, and this is, and sometimes people come here and this is what they expect, right? They expect to see sushi, or they expect to see things that we don't do, So I think I'm answering your question, but I think that there's a significant opportunity to really, to help educate people about like what we do through social media and things like that. Like we have a particular individual, this guy Nathan, who does that exclusively for all the restaurants, and we're learning more about like, things that are impactful, right? That you can see a result, right? Like whether it's a post of, maybe it's a repost, or it's a process. It's like, hey, look at this, like this is how we do it, So did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Kind of?
Well, not exactly, but I think I prefer how the conversation went to what my original question was.
All right.
For context, one of the questions like that you unintentionally answered was like, how do you think restaurants like Gaijin help educate people about authentic Japanese food? I think you did a good job of touching on that, just like the fact that, first of all, you guys exist beyond the actions like, sushi, ramen, that people normally associate kind of like more stereotypical or like westernized, like a lot of often westernized like versions of it.
Right.
So I think it's like really good that you guys, that you had like a background where people were able to introduce you to even something outside of even ramen and like sushi kind of being like newer to like the areas where you were. I think it's very like beneficial to like, just like, I don't know. I'm very big on learning about cultures in any like small way I can. So like even something like this, I think does a big, like even on me coming to do this interview does like a big impression on me, and be like, okay, so it is possible to find like non stereotypical restaurants. You
Right.
just have to do a little bit more of a search for them.
Yeah, and we do, our approach to okonomiyaki is like, I'm pretty sure when I say this is the case, like it's like how the Japanese approach it. Like it depends on where you are, right? Like so we're in the United States, we're in the upper Midwest. I'm from the Midwest. Like one of our Osaka styles is beef neck that we cook like pot roast, right?
Yeah.
Like they're not making okonomiyaki in Japan with pot roast.
Yeah.
Right. So we definitely have, and that sort of ties into myself and my chefs and our experience as chefs. It's like where you want to try to create something that's like the core of the pancake, the core of the okonomiyaki is as authentic as we think it is, but then there's so many different avenues, and that's what makes it fun, right? So yeah.
Sounds good. How do you like kind of see or envision the future of Japanese cuisine in Chicago and beyond?
I think that Japanese food is going to continue to it's going to continue. The amount of Japanese food. I think as the world continues to get smaller, I think there's going to be more and more Japanese restaurants that hopefully are like the Japanese places back home and have really solid focus. I mean, you see that with sushi. I mean, you see that with some places, but there's like udon as an example.
Yeah.
Like that's not easy to find, but like udon is like it's interesting because the West Coast and the East Coast has more of the sort of focused places like hot pot restaurants, udon restaurants. Like you don't see that as much maybe down in Atlanta or down in the Midwest or Southeast or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think you're just gonna. I mean, why wouldn't people want to have that opportunity if they can to kind of discover something that's new and unique, right? Like think about other foods in the United States. Middle Eastern food. Has a significant presence in certain parts of the country, but now it's like more.
Yeah.
You can find it
more often,
right?
Yeah.
You know, so I think that's cool. I think that it's just it's opportunity, right, for more education about great food, you know, and hopefully keeps everybody getting along, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Children.
Back to Anthony Bourdain, right? Bringing people together with good food, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Hello again. Thank you for watching through to the end of the video. I just wanted to do a quick little reflection and give some more context. So, as for interview questions, I asked him way more interview questions than that, but a lot of them were introductory or less like more about the restaurant and less focused on globalization. So I just didn't include that in this specific project just for sake of time, because there's also a lot of times where I was asking questions and they kind of turned into like conversations, and he was like answering questions before I even got to them. So I made sure to kind of pick 2 or 3 areas where I could clearly see where like the questions he was, which of my questions he was answering. So, that's one thing, but I think the content was still good. And other than that, I think one thing that really kind of stuck with me was his comment about like being like with having a restaurant with a more niche focus, and like with concern about other restaurants like doing it but not necessarily doing it well, and how it can like negatively impact any like opportunities at growth, and like opportunities to like become more widespread and more popular in the region. And I don't know if that's a thing for like all like global products that, you know, are just less westernized or less popular. Like it's a good question. Like at what point is quantity more important than quality? Because I think for me, on the like other end of the spectrum, like for sushi, like it's great that sushi is everywhere, but like what like negative impacts like does that have? Like does it have a negative impact? For example, are like, or no, literally just like I said, like do we care more about the fact that there's more sushi around, or should there be more of a matter of like the quality of what the sushi, like how the sushi is made? Because let's be real, your local grocery store sushi does not match um like expensive restaurant sushi, and it's cheaper, but it's like not the same. It doesn't taste the same. Like the experience in itself, like consuming the sushi, is different. And then even when you think about like food culture, like, you know, like every now and again, like cultures, like there's like rules and customs, like with how you eat certain dishes, like by having like such a large quantity and being able to produce it at such a scale where it's just even in a local grocery store, like is that taking away from the food culture experience in any way? And these weren't questions I had. It's just like going back and listening to the interview. It's kind of um, like post project reflection thoughts I had. And oh yeah, and like I'm still like really curious about like the pop culture media, like popular media, social media aspect of it. Like what role does that play in like preserving, yeah, and like the preservation of cultural or ethnic foods, um like whether, regardless of whether it's beneficial or whether it's harmful, like what role does that play, especially in these instances where if we think that like more niche dishes getting more traction is a good thing, like how can we get to social media to like make that work? Because like even for sushi it took like years, and this was like pre-social media, um like for like people to like for communities to establish themselves and like work it up to like where it could, where it was even like desired I guess like in the U.S. contest, they had to work up to a point where it was even like desirable to like the U.S. population. Of course, there's like a lot of like historical, like socioeconomic, like there's always other factors at play. But I think it's just kind of curious. Or I think a better question would be like, now that we have social media and that like when it comes to like food trends and like thinking about like algorithm and like all the lovely components of um, living in generations that are getting more and more technologically advanced, what role will social media play in preserving food customs and food cultures? Um, so yeah, that's my little uh, post post project tangent, and thank you again for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed.